Have you ever wondered why our ancestors' fascination with the heavenly was so great? They built huge, massive structures aimed at the extremely detailed observation of the sky, structures that to this day are shrouded in mystery, and we can't explain how they were built and why. One theory suggests that these structures were erected using the knowledge provided to our ancient ancestors by visitors from another world. This is exactly the idea behind the theory of ancient astronauts, or ancient aliens. This is a pseudoscientific hypothesis that intelligent extraterrestrial beings visited Earth and made contact with humans in ancient times. Proponents suggest that this contact influenced the development of modern cultures, technologies, religions, and even human biology. It is a generally accepted position that the deities of most, if not all, religions are of extraterrestrial origin, and that the advanced technologies brought to Earth by ancient astronauts were interpreted as evidence of divine status by early humans. However, this theory, developed in this way, is not taken seriously by scientists and archaeologists, who consider it pseudo-archaeological or unscientific. It has not received attention in any peer-reviewed research. During the second half of the 20th century, proponents of ancient aliens wrote numerous books or appeared regularly in the mass media. Some of them gained great popularity, such as Erich von Däniken, Zecharia Sitchin, Robert C.G. Temple, Giorgio Tsoukalos, and others. Among scientists, there is a consensus that the hypothesis of ancient astronauts is not impossible, but unfounded and unnecessary. The mysteries that are cited as evidence for the hypothesis can be explained without having to refer to ancient aliens from other worlds. And while today, scientists argue about the theory, trying to apply Occam's razor so far unsuccessfully, it seems that the question of quests from space was on the agenda thousands of years ago. Ancient religious texts describe these visits. It is precisely in them that the supporters of the theory find their strongest support that is backing their views. They are based on the idea that ancient creation myths about gods coming down from the heavens to earth to create or guide humanity are referring to extraterrestrial visitors, whose superior technology explains their perception as gods. They draw an analogy with events in our time, when isolated cultures are exposed to Western technology, such as the discovery of the cargo huts in the South Pacific at the beginning of the 20th century. Cultures that believed that various Western ships and their loads were sent by the gods in fulfillment of the prophecies of their return. Sumer, an ancient Sumerian myth of the Enuma Elish, inscribed on the cuneiform tablets and part of the library of Ashurbanipal. It is said that mankind was created to serve gods called Anunnaki. Proponents of the hypothesis believe that the Anunnaki are extraterrestrials who came to Earth to mine gold for their own needs. According to the Enuma Elish story, the Anunnaki realized that mining was bad for their race, and for that reason, they created humans as slaves, and they only came to collect the mining. Ramayana. In Hindu mythology, gods and their avatars travel from place to place in flying vehicles called vimanas. There are many references to these flying machines in the Ramayana. One of these was used by the Lankan king Ravana of Sri Lanka, described in records dating to the 5th or 4th century BC. Here are some examples of mentions of such apparatus, recorded in Book 6 of the Ramayana. The magic chariot. Is not my chariot wonderful, called Pushpak, forged by divine hands? This chariot, guarded with the greatest care, will carry you through the airfields, and you will light with travel tirelessly down in the royal city of beautiful Ayodhya. The departure. Swiftly sped through the air as Rama chose, the wondrous chariot rose from the earth, and adorned with swans and silver wings, she carried her load of kings through the clouds. Erich von Däniken discusses the Ramayana and the Vimanas in Chapter 6 of The Chariots of the Gods, suggesting that they are space vehicles. In support of his hypothesis, he offers a quotation from the 1889 translation of the Mahabharata by K. Roy. Bhima flew with his Vamana on a huge beam that was brilliant like the sun and made a noise like the thunder of a storm. The Book of Genesis and the Book of Enoch. In the Book of Genesis, New International Version, chapter 6, verses 1 and 2 and 4, it says, "When men began to multiply on the earth, and daughters were born to them, The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they wished. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also after, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. Many Christians believe that these groups are the various families of the children of Adam and Eve. Another interpretation is that the Nephilim are the children of the sons of God and the daughters of men, although scholars deny this. Proponents of the ancient astronauts claim that Adam and Eve ate from the forbidden fruit to become godlike, and this was the first step in human evolution. The first part of the apocryphal Book of Enoch seems to expand and interpret Genesis 6:1. According to it, the sons of God were a group of 200 angels called Watchers, who came down to earth to watch over us, but were subsequently tempted by the beauty of human women and began to breed with them. The common offspring are the Nephilim, giants who destroy all the gains of men. When humans could no longer withstand them, the Nephilim turned against humanity. The Watchers, in turn, taught people metallurgy and metalworking, cosmetics, witchcraft, astrology, astronomy, and meteorology. God then ordered the Watchers to be imprisoned on earth and created the Great Flood to rid the planet of the Nephilim and the humans who had received knowledge from the Watchers. To ensure the survival of mankind, Noah is warned of the coming destruction. The book describes the Watchers as fallen angels because they disobeyed God. You can find detailed videos about the Book of Enoch in our channel. Some proponents of the ancient astronauts claim that these writings are a historical account of extraterrestrials who visited Earth, called Watchers because their mission was to observe humanity. Some of the aliens disobeyed orders. They made contact with humans, interbred with human women, and shared their knowledge with them. Thus, the Nephilim were hybrids between humans and aliens. Chuck Missler and Mark Eastman hypothesized that the modern UFOs we see are actually fallen angels or their descendants. Their theory states that Noah's lineage was not tainted by alien interference, and the alteration of the human gene pool was the main problem on Earth before the flood. Von Daniken also suggested that the two angels who visited Lot in Genesis 19 were ancient astronauts who used atomic weapons to destroy the city of Sodom. You can find a detailed video about Sodom and Gomorrah in our channel. Mark Dim reinterprets the book of Genesis, writing that humanity started anew on another planet. Book of Ezekiel. In the Old Testament, chapter 1 of the book of the prophet Ezekiel tells of a vision in which he saw a huge cloud that contained fire, emitting lightning and a bright light. It says the center of the fire was like red-hot metal, and in it was what looked like 4 living creatures. These creatures, called cherubim, are described as winged human-like. They moved to and fro like lightning, and fire moved to and fro among the creatures. The passage goes on to describe 4 shining objects called Ophani, each of which looked like a wheel crossing a wheel. These objects could fly and move with the creatures. When the living creatures moved, the wheels beside them also moved. In chapter 4 of the Chariots of the Gods, entitled Was God an Astronaut?, Von Daniken suggests that Ezekiel saw a spaceship or ships. This hypothesis was advanced by Maurice Jessup in 1956 and by Arthur W. Orton in 1961. A detailed version of the hypothesis was described by Joseph F. Blumrich in his 1974 book, Ezekiel's Spaceships. Other references in the Bible. Some proponents of ancient astronauts, such as Von Daniken and Brian Downing, believe that the concept of hell in the Bible may be a real description of the planet Venus brought to Earth by aliens, who show people pictures of the planet's hot surface. Proponents of this hypothesis claim that God and Satan are extraterrestrials who had a dispute over whether human beings should be allowed the information offered by the Tree of Knowledge. David Childress, a leading proponent of the hypothesis of creation by ancient astronauts, compares this story to the Greek myth of Prometheus, who gave mankind the knowledge of fire. Eric Von Daniken suggested that the descendants of aliens had children with hominids, and this is called in the Bible original sin. Religions related to UFOs. Various new religious movements, including some branches of Theosophy, Scientology, Realism, the Aetherius Society, and Heaven's Gate, believe in ancient and modern contacts with extraterrestrial intelligence. Many of these denominations consider both ancient scriptures and recent revelations related to extraterrestrial activity. Psychologists have found that UFO religions have similarities that suggest members of these groups consciously or subconsciously associate a fascination with science fiction memes. It's amazing why religion wants to rule out the existence of extraterrestrial life, and how proponents of the theory of ancient astronauts lightly deny religious deities and canons. What if both exist independently? If it was God who drove these invaders out of our world, and that is why they dare not come near us, because even they themselves do not understand the power that has come upon them, then is not God our Savior again? The truth is that for any theory, one can find facts in support and in denial in the pile. It all depends on which thesis he wants to prove or disprove. What a person really believes in, however, no one and nothing can change.
One of the most unusual discoveries of the last century was made in Chile's Atacama Desert over 2 decades ago. Hidden in the scorched sand was a small mummy unlike any human ever discovered. Its unusual features led researchers to speculate upon its origin, with some labeling as proof that extraterrestrials have visited Earth. Debates have continued to this day, with some suggesting the skeleton an ancient humanoid, others an extraterrestrial. Some even claim this skeleton proves that an extraterrestrial group successfully created a human-alien hybrid. But just what exactly was discovered in the Chilean desert? Let's find out. The discovery of the Atacama skeleton. Oscar Munoz has been wandering around the ghost town of La Noria in the Atacama Desert back in 2003 when he came across something unusually sticking out of the sand. As he investigated the item, he discovered a strange white cloth that was tied elegantly with a violet ribbon. The entire wrap was only around 6 inches long, and Munoz opened the tiny package, which he found inside shocked not only him, but would soon shock the world. For inside lay the remains of a small, mummified girl that looked something straight out of a science fiction movie. The entire skeleton of the little girl was around 15 centimeters long, sparking huge debates as how this was even possible. The name Ada was given to the tiny mummified skeleton following its discovery. It has various unusual features, including 10 ribs instead of the usual 12, and her head was conical in shape, or what we might now refer to as an elongated skull. It was also later found out that Ada had a rare bone age disorder that made them appear to be much older than they actually were. Ada was likely sold illegally several times before she ended up in the collection of the wealthy Spanish entrepreneur Ramon Navio Osorio, an avid UFO enthusiast. The scientific data and testing. This tiny skeleton began making headlines around the world as various alternative researchers claimed that this was, in fact, proof of the existence of aliens. While many were quick to call this discovery an elaborate hoax due to the unusual features of the small skeleton, scientists eventually got involved and even carried out various tests. Ramon decided that it seemed worthwhile to get to the bottom of the mystery, and so he gave permission to Dr. Stephen Green to do some X-ray and CT scans on the remains. Greer even took things one step further by supplying microbiologist Gary Nolan with samples of Ada's bone marrow. Following these experiments, the scientists had all they needed to get a good reading on the genetic origin of Ada. Yet to their surprise, the small girl held genes that were similar to modern-day Chileans. The genetic testing was carried out by Stanford University in 2013. They declared that Ada was of a human genome and descended from a mixture of modern-day Chilean ancestry as well as European. Further studies provided scientists with the date when Ada was born, suggesting that she was less than 50 years old. However, this has been a great debate. While the genetic analysis gave Nolan comfort in his theory that she was of human origin, he was still unsure of why Ada had such unusual physical features. Many other researchers were not sold on the idea that the mystery of this small skeleton was solved. Nolan did go on to finally give some reasoning as to why he and his team from Stanford believed Ada was unlike any other human. In a paper published in the Genome Research, he wrote, "Ada is a female of human origin, likely of Chilean descent, and its genome harbors mutations in genes previously linked with diseases of small stature, rib anomalies, and cranial malformations, premature joint fusion, and osteochondroplasia, also known as skeletal dysplasia." Nolan and his team went on to claim that Ada has at least 7 separate gene mutations, which ultimately cause the various malformations. This is the reasoning which scientists give for Ada's unusual physical characteristics, including the advanced age of her bones and her extremely small stature. They ultimately finish by claiming that Ada was a human fetus that was stillborn or died not long after birth. But does this solve the mystery of the Ada skeleton? Are we missing half the puzzle when we consider the unusual abnormalities which the young Chilean possessed? A hybrid. A good deal of scientific study and testing has been carried out on Ada, and researchers did not deny the existence of human DNA in her genome. This led to the theory that a branch of extraterrestrials may have, in fact, created a human-alien hybrid in Chile. Not everyone is convinced that Nolan and his team were putting the advancement of science first. Instead, they believe he was simply trying to explain in the best way he could the unusual skeleton. One geneticist, Fauzan Al-Kharaya, who works at the Specialist Hospital and Research Center in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, doesn't agree with Nolan's opinion. Speaking with National Geographic, Al-Kharaya said, 7 genetic mutations are virtually unheard of. He went on to say that while they don't know what it is, it most certainly is not a deformed human being. This is an opinion held by various alternative researchers who claim that the skeleton could be some kind of advanced experiment carried out by extraterrestrials. They claim that while Ada was a human genome, are the scientists hiding the fact there could also be genetic material that doesn't align with our own? This would make sense, considering Ada has various deformities that are unlike anything expected of a child in that region. Ada is not the only unusual remains discovered in South America. In Paracas, Peru, similar elongated skulls have been popping up over the last few decades, and one researcher, Brian Forrester, has made it his mission to get to the bottom of the enigma. After years of paperwork, he was able to get permission from the Peruvian government to test many of these red and blonde-haired elongated mummies, and to his surprise, many of them come back with European ancestry, just like Ada. Brian was able to go one step further and suggest that Paracas skulls originated around the Black Sea area of Europe. Here we find more of these unusual elongated skulls. Brian later revealed that Paracas skulls also had a small amount of unknown genetic material that didn't match anything that we know to be human. Could this be proof that the ancient extraterrestrials spliced some of their own DNA with that of humans to create this unusual race of humans? And is Ada an ancestor to these unusual elongated groups that have been popping up everywhere from Mexico to Iran? Further genetic testing would have to be completed on an array of these skulls to prove this. But as it stands, some researchers are sure that this unknown genetic material found in some of the Peruvian skulls is enough to suggest that extraterrestrial invitation right here on Earth. Conflicting opinions. There have been various conflicting opinions about the true nature of Ada. It seems ideas are split between the logical scientists who are working to prove that she is a deformed human, whereas open-minded researchers are still considering the possibility that there is a lot more to the story of this unusual little girl. While this started as a story about aliens and went international, it's really a story of a human tragedy. A woman who had a malformed baby. It was preserved in a manner and then hawked or sold as a strange artifact. It turns out to be human, with a fascinating genetic story from which we might learn something important to help others. May she rest in peace, shares one of the scientists. While the community is still divided on just exactly who or what Ada is, no one will deny that she isn't an extraordinary find that has sparked a great deal of curiosity. While there is evidence to suggest Ada is nothing more than a miscarried child of Chilean European ancestry, her many deformities continue to spark interest from alternative researchers around the world. The fact that she may be related to the elongated skulls of Peru, a group that has an unusual amount of previously unknown genetic material, gives credence to the idea that she may, in fact, be a hybrid. What do you think? Is Ada simply a Chilean child with various genetic mutations? Or could she be part of some kind of ancient genetic experiment carried out by a group of extraterrestrials? Let us know your opinion in the comments section.